All right. So let me put my phone on mute. All right. So welcome. I guess the meeting. It's our second network resilience working group meeting. I missed the first one, so this is my first one. Can we do a tour the tab quickly with who's who and what's their role?
Sure.
So Tom.
Yeah. I think I'd mentioned this. I'm the project manager for this. I work with ISOC.
Okay. Christina. You're on mute. All right. Chan?
Hello?
Oh, Christina?
Oh, hi there. Sorry about that. I am here representing Health Canada.
Health Canada?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chan?
Hi, my name is Chi Chan. I work in the ICT resilience team.
Okay. I said, so Faud?
FoudCon representing 12 Dot, and I'm also the chair of the labeling work group as well.
We should get you a gizmo to change your voice because you look like the phantom participant.
I was looking to see if I can maybe pull this, the exposure difference. I think my camera just can't adjust properly. I'll see what I can do.
We have Allison.
Allison.
What do you do?
Yeah, I'm working with Jack and Cyril Labs.
All right. So I guess it's going to be a fairly short and sweet call. So the agenda item 2 was to define or confirm.
Jacques, I think the list keeps going on if you wanted to do the full table.
Is there more people?
Yeah, you have to scroll down.
Oh, what about it?
And while I'm at it, Jordan Melzer from TELUS.
Oh, I see. Okay. I'll keep. So you can go on. I don't see that. Jordan? You're on mute.
Oh, no, I'm with TELUS. And we've been working on, as you know, a project somewhat related to the network resilience project. So we're trying to cooperate together.
Okay. Corey?
I'm with CSE. I'm popping in for this one and seeing how it pairs up with some of the initiatives we've got.
CSE? Did we meet in the past or?
I don't think I met with you. My coworker was on the labeling one on Wednesday. So
Okay.
I had an appointment in the morning, so I'm filling in today.
Oh, perfect. CSE, okay. Taylor?
Hi, everyone. This is Taylor Bentley from ISET Internet Policy and Governance, and I support Pam Miller's participation on the planning committee for this initiative.
Okay. Kimi?
Yeah, hi, this is Kim Handy from CIPO, and I'm with the Education and Awareness Working Group, so I'm just as an observer here today.
And CIPO is?
Part of ISED, the Canadian Intellectual Property Office.
Okay, because we're too many acronyms after a while. Thank you. Maria?
Hi, I'm Maria. So I've just been working in the IT software development field, currently new in Ottawa and back in Canada. But generally, I'm just interested in technology and the current issues around it.
Okay, thank you. Olivia?
Hi, I'm Olivia Faria. I'm a master's student at Carleton University, and I'll be in the Network Resilience Group as well as the Public Awareness and Education.
Okay. Elson, we got, and there's 2 people on the phone.
Hi, it's Greg Barnhart, representing National Cybersecurity Directorate at Public Safety Canada.
Okay, thanks. And the other one is 6528-994. All right, so we have a, did I cover everything, everybody? All right, good. So agenda number 2. So like I said, this is our second meeting. And then agenda item 2 is to confirm the scope of the work and the outcome of the working group. And so if you click on the link on the agenda, you'll have access to the report from the multi-stakeholder meeting that we had in Ottawa. And from that, we decided to create a network resilience group. And the work that we've defined in that meeting was to build or develop a white paper to outline the best practice or to outline a strategy for IoT security. And then the second item was to build an actual prototype or a proof of concept of a device or a system that would enable network resiliency and security. And then the last part is third one is to define to develop the definition of what network resiliency is in our scope. They're not in order. I think there are 3 tasks that can be done in parallel, and each one is feeding the other one. So the definition is important because a lot of people, from my perspective, no one has the same definition of IoT, what an IoT device is. Some people think it's everything connected to the internet, and the other camp is very strict, narrow definition on actuators and sensors connected to the internet. So that's a very broad. So if we're to define the security and build recommendation around protecting these things on the internet, if we're not clear on the definition, then it's very difficult to define what the scope of the work is. So I'll just cover the agenda quickly just to make sure that we're all in sync there. The third agenda item is to figure out the overlap or the integration with the other working groups. So there's the labeling group, the communication, outreach. So we need to figure out where and how and if we integrate with these groups. Agenda 4 is where are we at, the status update on the work that we're doing right now, because there's different activities with the different working group, and I'll talk about it later, but at Zero, we're building a prototype, so there's actual development, R&D that we're doing that contributes to this project. And then next step is, what are the next step and what do we do? And then AOB. So back to agenda 2, we need to, so before I move too fast, as far as I know, Jordan, you're my co-chair on this project, on the network resiliency working group. So if you want to provide feedback, just jump in at any time.
Thanks, Jack.
Okay. Or if you see I'm going at the wrong place, just steer me back in the right direction. It never happens.
Never.
So as far as I know, we haven't started for action, the number 1, the white paper. We haven't started any work on that. But the goal is to develop a document, I guess a white paper that defines how we're going to protect the internet from the things and how we're going to protect the things from the internet. So the focus that I'm seeing that we're going to work on, or we are working on, is on the home gateway. That seems to be the logical place to work on, to do some R&D and to build standards around that. The US last year and the year before, they worked on building an IoT framework to keep IoT device up to date from their vendor. So it's all around software update and being up to date. So they've covered that part inside out. I think our focus is, our focus is to work on the home gateway and to develop the recommendation or the specification for a next generation home gateway that protects IoT from the internet and protects the internet from IoT device. So defining a white paper is our goal for this project. And I think in the white paper, we need to define exactly what standards need to be developed and what standard need to be refined in order to achieve the goal. So if we now jump to number 2, I'll give you an example. We're working on building a home gateway, and right now we already found deficiencies or improvement that we could make with the MUD RFC, or the proposal for MUD, which is a method to define what the characteristic of an IoT device is. So the white paper should include, somehow we need to update the white paper with the findings of number 2. So they're all interlinked together, the scope. So far, for number 2, building a prototype or a proof of concept, that was a CIRA initiative. So FAUD is involved in this project. Jordan and his students also joined in that project. So we have more and more contributor in here. We have Michael Richardson, which is a IETF guru that's working with us, that his focus is on the IETF. FAUD has a focus on the ISO, IEC standard. So I think we have the right people. We have enough people today to influence the white paper and the definition of the standard that should be developed or guide them in the right direction. And then the third item is to build a definition of network resilience. So I think that's part of the white paper. It's a section of the white paper to define specifically what we're doing, but it's on its own item because it's kind of a touchy discussion to define what IoT is and to define what the resiliency around IoT. Because if an IoT device is everything connecting to the internet, then the network resilience is the entire internet, and I think that is too broad in scope, or it'd be impossible for this working group to build the definition of what network resiliency is for the entire internet. That's not in scope. So we need to have a definition that is manageable within our goal of building a home gateway proof of concept, and then to enable a more secure future. So any questions so far on this or discussion?
Sure. So on the white paper, I mean, would you consider, so this is partly me sounding you out, and I apologize for if it doesn't make full sense to the group yet. So for the prototype you're doing, you have the design document for it, but it's not, it doesn't discuss background issues, or it's not a high level document. Is it fair to say that we're basically at 0 on the white paper today?
I would say we're at 0. Exactly.
Okay. So I think we probably, one of the goals of this meeting could be to recruit people who are interested in that white paper, in doing 1 and 3. Certainly, if you were interested in doing 2, that's great, and we can talk about more of what's in there. But you know, the white paper is, I think we need people who are interested in exploring that problem. And I don't think, no matter what, even though the prototype is focused on a home gateway, not all of the parts that are involved are in the home gateway. And not all of the focus will not be, the focus of network resilience is not going to be simply the home gateway. So there is a wider scope to the white paper. And if anybody wants to put up their hand and say, I'm interested in this problem, and this is, I want to be helping us define it and approach it in the white paper, I think this would be a great opportunity.
Okay, and also we need to, out of 2 and 3, we need to identify aspect of this solution or the project that have a policy impact that should be outlined in the white paper.
Yeah. One thing I would also add, Jacques, is we should also try to consider requirements to make sure, like, when not just our requirements for a standard, but requirements for the policy as well. Because I don't necessarily know we're trying to just create a standard out of this. If we can kind of give the requirements that might be related to the policies as well. It's just a little nuance, but I think we just need to just clarify that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does anybody want to jump in and say they have interest in one, for example? And I think later on we should talk about just a little bit on what we've done for 2 and what else we're trying to achieve. To give people who are on the call a sense of what's in flight.
Oh, the other thing maybe, Jacques, we should just mention is we're not trying to recreate the wheel. So anything that's kind of existing, we'll attempt to reuse. So in part of the exercise, it could be a mapping of just the current landscape of these aspects, and then making sure that whatever we come up with is basically just making sure we have the Canadian perspective of that. Does that meet the need of the Canadian marketplace? I think it would be a key element as well.
Okay. Yeah, well, yeah, obviously, yeah.
Yeah.
Any volunteers? This is a working group. And by definition, working group, the first word is working. And if you take the 3 last letter out, it's work. And that's what volunteers do. That's my sense of humor. So not re.
So if I could maybe put her on a pedestal, Olivia, is this something that you could perhaps help with?
Yes, sorry. I think I could help with this one, specifically the policy impact. My background is technology policy, and I'll be doing that again in my master's. So I think I'd be okay with helping out in this part.
What a fabulous opportunity. All right. So I guess over time, I'll solicit more feedback on, I guess we can start the shell and then invite people over time on Slack to participate in this action item. So last call for volunteers, unless I pick people at random in the list.
Well, hey, Jacques, I mean, I'm going to be working, this is Taylor Bentley, I'm going to be working on pretty much everything, so I don't know if it's worth putting my name, but at the same time, we can also, I mean, if it is an area where we need to identify specific people, then, you know, volunteering, I think, should be an option. And I think we'll get to that in the next steps when we talk about gaps in membership, for instance, if we do see specific people or organizations that need to be involved.
Okay. Certainly, if you're on the call and you have a particular system of critical, or if you're responsible for critical infrastructure and you think you'd like to see some way of addressing IoT that helps you out, and you happen to be on the call right now, you know, jump in, say you're interested.
So
yeah, Jacques, you should probably add my name and probably Michael's as well, right? because I'm sure we'll probably be putting in inputs.
So from a critical infrastructure point of view, the main reason that CIRA is working on this is because of the Dyn attack. So having IoT device in home networks that are not protected or from attacking the internet, that's a critical threat to the core internet infrastructure and the major internet participant. And the reason we're working on this is that the idea that we have to build a secure home gateway is to protect the internet from IoT device. So it's to protect the internet from things that are inside a home network, an enterprise network, a government network. It's by default, home gateways allow all the traffic inside to go out. There's no control, there's no access control to prevent that. And what we're trying to do is to change that, to make sure that it's not a free-for-all inside the house to attack anything on the internet or to go anywhere on the internet. So we need to change how the entire home gateway industry behaves in terms of security controls inside home gateways. And that's what we're trying to do here. So is this valuable to all enterprise in the future? The answer is yes. We need to make the internet more secure.
Hi, I'd like to volunteer as well. I'm not sure how I can add some help, but I do have more of a technical background, especially in software development and QA, and I have a good understanding of the user side. So yeah, I hope I can help out.
Okay. So we have a good start. So next item is in the multi-stakeholder meeting, I raised my hand and I said, well, donate code and running code. And that was a big highlight for Andrew, where he liked the idea of having running code as an outcome of this project. Running code as outcome. And this is what CIRA is working on right now, is to build a secure home gateway prototype that leverages most of the recent technology proposal, RFCs, and the latest technology so that we build something that is like next generation. So with volunteers at this level, we have enough, not enough, I don't know, do we need more? So far, that's we can talk about that in an action item, which is later. So the goal is running code and a prototype soon, like before year end or something like that. I think that's a good outcome for this work.
Now, Jacques, is that going to be based on the white paper and just kind of what the requirements are in there, or like what is going to drive like what the prototype is and the proof of concept code?
It's going to be on a best effort basis based on the resource that we have. I don't think we can commit to anything specific. We're constrained in resource. We do have the goal of the project. We know what we want to do, but it's not going to be based on the white paper or. Okay. But the goal is to have something that we can demo.
But they'll be related. They just may not perfectly match.
Yeah.
And
okay. I just want yes.
Sorry, and maybe related, you had mentioned the NTIA process on upgradability and patching. Will it be consistent, or will there be a link to a way in which the two can be kind of complementary?
technically the MUD profile for a IoT device that has a software update capability, that should be defined in the profile. So the GE IoT device, the MUD profile should say you have access to GE.com, and then the gateway is going to allow that. So it's going to enable that in a secure fashion. Yes.
Okay, that's great. Thanks. Then actually maybe that could be as a sub bullet, similar to Fowd's point. Where possible, implement existing best practices or existing work like the NTIA process or existing standards, etc. Again, where possible.
Oh, but that's what we're doing. One thing we discovered is there's a lot of initiative all around the planet. People are building little pieces of the solution. And what we're doing is taking all of these things together and bringing them in a cohesive solution. So, yes.
Oh, yeah, well, and that's my understanding as well. We should highlight it. Yeah, perfect. Everyone knows, so then you're really showing off all the good work that you're doing.
That the other people are doing, yeah.
We are all doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good opportunity for awareness as well. I think that's a key part. Yeah.
Everybody has their own. There's a lot of small pieces that I think so far we figured out that if we put all of those together, we create a good gateway. Plus our vision to make it easy to use. So it's not that we don't need to write a lot of code because other people are working on that. It's more integration. Above that, yeah.
Tell us, Algonquin.
Yeah. So far, so good. And then number 3 is the development of the network resilience, the definition of network resilient. So, Tom, we have a link, right, for that document somewhere?
What document?
For the definition of network resilience, like the third action item, or do we put that in the white paper?
I think this should be wrapped up into the white paper.
Okay.
Our basic definition of network resilience was to protect the network from devices, or networks from devices and devices from the network. I think that's as far as we got. There's also a discussion of whether or not that extends to cyber physical systems. This is, if you actually go into the report of our last multi-stakeholder meeting, there's a more comprehensive description, and there's actually a timestamp where you can go find the discussion on our video on demand, which is all up on our website.
Okay. So we need to, one observation here is that we need to define the definition of IoT that works in the context of 1 and 2, or at least 2. So that's any issue on the scope of work, what we're trying to do? We're all in sync, kind of. So agenda number 3 is overlap with other working groups. So, Fowd, can you talk about the labeling overlap that we're potentially gonna have?
I think from that perspective, it would be around. So in the context of, say, the device, how does that device get configured? How does it get updated? Has it been through a formal assessment and evaluation? And so the consumer, whether that's a business or whether that's an actual home consumer, that they understand the potential risk of that product. And so I think it's in our white paper, we'll probably allude to some of that in what's being determined right now from the current standards and the standards that are being used to do those kind of fingerprintings, like things, for example, 62443 in the industrial sector, and then there's safety standards as well that can be referenced. So I think that's kind of where the carry-off is, or the alignment between these two groups. And then kind of separate to that, but talking about IETF and specifically like the MUD specification on, being able to, when a device or an IoT devices connected to a network, how is it profiled, and then how can you actually then create access controls around that. And that's basically, I think, what the goal of our the router project is how do you then put the necessarily controls in a router interface, layer 2, layer 3, to basically protect that device from doing things it's not supposed to do.
Okay.
Would we also want to make anything about the state of the devices that you might find on a label? Like basically, are these still devices that are following standards? We want to make that visible to a home user through the router or through the router's UI, even if it's an app?
Yeah, so one of the other things too that we can start to talk about is one of the things that we've discovered in the router project is that the MUD specification goes so far, but one of the things that we're looking at is adding like a secondary part to the MUD what are you going to call it, statement or definition, that actual file. So we're looking at a secondary service where we would add additional control and risk aspect to the actual MUD file. So for example, say you have a home appliance for a home user, then what we can do is we can class it based on consumer appliance, and then it has other control aspects that are assigned to it for the home environment. Now, that would change, for example, in security. So you could have a security camera, which basically has two settings. One is a consumer setting and one is a business setting. And so in the confines of a business, it has potentially a lot more access controls and restrictions on what it can do, who it can talk to, segregation of network, etc., that device would have. And so those are the things that we're thinking about for an additional specification. So we're still working at the details of that. So, but it's something that has come up in our discussions in our development right now in our first kind of code loads for the router.
Okay. So I added that as additional security control. My Google decided to stop on me, so it's not working anymore.
Okay. Sorry, just one more question. Would we see aspects of labeling that help one to onboard a device into a home network? And is that an area of overlap?
Onboarding, so you mean initial, just when they're just setting it up?
Yeah.
Interesting. So I would say right now it's not, but that is definitely covered off in kind of the router project and the MUD specification, because it really is about as soon as that device attempts to connect to the home network or to the business network, what happens to it. So it automatically, like what we're thinking is it goes into a controlled area, and it basically is in a holding area until it's confirmed its identity, what it is, what is the code load, et cetera, and then at that point, only then is it allowed to actually communicate with other devices on the network and actually get like layer 2 access to the network. So those are the kind of things we're thinking about. But again, that's at the MUD kind of specification layer. But it's something to consider for labeling. Do consumers need to know of that? But to me, that's the labeling at purchase time or decision time when they're evaluating different products out there for different sectors. That, are they going to use this for an agriculture or smart agriculture implementation versus another implementation? Those would be, to me, the requirements around purchase versus the initial setup.
Right. It's just for some of these devices, the potentially like they may be user interface less, and if we're trying to onboard them in a certain way, we may need something in the label that helps with that.
Interoperability. Well, interoperability, right, is the other big problem that's happening in the industry as well, because a lot of devices only talk specific protocols and not others, and then even then they're not built to specific RFC specification. So no one's done actual interoperability testing, signal testing, or anything like that. So what's called robustness testing in like the IEC world. So I think, those are all things we should, let me think about that. Those might be aspects I want to add into labeling, but to give just the buyer more awareness prior to, at the decision time for product.
Yeah,
but I'll make a note. I'll make a note of that.
And addressing the human component of this is something that, I personally believe that the consumer education group should take up, as in, conveying the value of gateways and developing appealing ways to, or affecting behavioral change, especially with respect to labeling. But I think that's something that we'd have to discuss in plenary, because it would probably change it would change the scope of the consumer education group fairly dramatically, I think. But I certainly think that we ought to pay more attention to how the network resiliency group, the labeling group, and the consumer education group work together towards a common, a tangible and common outcome. I think that's important, and I think eventually we'll work there, but I think we have to be more cognizant of that.
So one of the key objectives of the prototype that we have that's totally understated or not appreciated, so this is something we need to take out of this project, is the interaction between the human and the home gateway. That's where a lot of the innovation is happening. So for example, the instruction that I have for the team to configure a home gateway with a complex network architecture where every IoT device has its own security access control. The only instruction a human is allowed to do is to swipe up on the phone, or to swipe down, or swipe left, or swipe right. The human is not allowed to put a password in there, not allowed to type in IP addresses. It's drag left, right, up, down. That means in the back, we need to provision the security control based on mud profile and other rules to accommodate that. But this is something the home gateways today are unusable by the majority of humans. And the goal of this project is to focus on the human aspect to make the entire provisioning super simple, yet very secure. So we need to extract that. Is that a consumer thing that we need to bring, or where does that fit?
I think that would be a great item for the consumer education group to take in. So like addressing some of the user interface issues. But that's just my thought.
What was that exactly, Jack? You were mentioning that the consumer group would adjust the input into adjusting the user interface?
No, how do we address the simplicity of the human interface in the consumer, or the education, or the awareness?
Well, sorry, can I jump in?
Oh, yeah.
Well, while you were talking, I was making some notes here. And for example, you were mentioning that the critical importance of defining the Internet of Things, the definition, and that the aspect that it protects, our goal is to protect the devices from the Internet and the Internet from the devices, right?
Yep.
So I think that while I'm writing down, the education of the population has to be something like, why are we looking into this aspect? So you define that. And so you also, present it in a way where you say, like when there produce these gaps in the internet because of the Internet of Things that are not sort of like the settings are not right or whatever, there produce these gaps that will then make the internet, these holes in the internet where things can happen. So eventually somebody can hack into your home and access your bank information because the settings were not right. Then you got people's attention of why it's important, this Internet of Things. Then how is where you say you look at the settings, you look at the specifications, you look at the labeling. And then you have a guide that says, I don't know if it's like online or without each device, that clearly indicates on, off, on, off. And so basically, this is the way more that I'm looking at it. I don't see how you can address, if that's what it is, but basically for me, this is addressing how this would be sort of like this in simple interface with the user, and then you tell people why they care, how they have to do it, and tell them which way or who can help them do it. And I think that while you're defining and while you're identifying and everybody's identifying why it's important to address these issues, these are nuggets of these lines of knowledge are key to capture, because that is exactly the message that you have to tell the public.
Okay.
And I can also, if I'm recalling correctly from the deck posted by the Office of Consumer Affairs on the Consumer Education and Awareness Group, they were actually looking at this as a kind of a third category of education and awareness campaigns or messaging. It's not security and privacy, but it's this third category of functionality. So you're actually, enabling consumers to understand and actually work with the device itself. So I think that may be reflected and could be a potential area of overlap.
Okay. So any other discussion on working group overlaps, or we're good? Okay, so current status of work. So we have notes from the first virtual round meeting. Those are available. There's a few email exchange, very, very few since. And then we've had some Slack chats happening. I think there's more activity on Slack and more participant than we have on the mailing list. And right now, as far as I know, we're working on the, well, I know that we are working on the prototype and the proof of concept code. So that's happening. Is there any other activity going on relating to this that we should capture here?
No, I think that sums it up. I would just reiterate here that, again, on the resources section of our website, this is where you can find all the reports of all our multi-stakeholder meetings, the reports of the webinars themselves. So these are text reports, as well as other supplementary material. And on our live stream page, that's where you can find all the videos. And that's all I have to say about that.
And also just on other work going on, I'm sure we'll just continue to uncover things, as you mentioned, Jacques, as far as like finding these different pieces being worked around, well, the world, but
yeah.
Also the IoT lab in Carleton. Maybe if we can get someone, I know Olivia's tapped into them a bit, maybe worth kind of asking them, figuring out maybe if even someone there, I know we want to get Mohammed, who's the Cisco chair on IoT, involved in the initiative, but they could give us a bit of an overview of the kind of projects they're working on and maybe even interest in contributing to your project.
Okay. Was that somebody talking in the background? Very. I can't hear. If you're trying to say something, you can go in the chat or raise your hand. Okay. Fao, do you want to give a quick update on our project, where we're at?
Sure. So just for everyone on the call who might not be aware, Sierra basically has a project going on right now, creating a secure home gateway. My company, 12 Dot, and my staff and I are supporting this, coming up with functional specification and an actual working prototype. So where we are right now is we actually got a good outline for a functional spec, and we're starting to build the first code loads based on that functional specification, what we're trying to do. And the key elements that we're trying to get done in the next couple months is have a functional prototype that basically shows a consumer buying a product, using a mobile app to then add that device to the home network. It will classify that device, and it will securely add it to the network. And so this is based on elements of MUD and a lot of other security features that are going to be built into the router. Now, the other aspect too that we're hoping to test is we're actually going to create a simulation of compromising one of those devices, and hopefully the router is going to quickly identify it, segregate that device onto the network, and quickly alert the user that they have a device that is potentially compromised. So basically protecting the home user from that device being used as a potential hot point, and or attacking the actual internet, so weaponizing for a broader kind of DDoS kind of attack. So that's what we're hoping to have done, and the goal is to really have the first phase of this project with the prototype done by the end of September, early October. So yeah, looking forward to that. And yeah, I think that's about it. I don't think I missed anything. Did I? I think that's what we're trying to do. Yep. Yep. And then the other thing maybe I'll add is everything that we're working on, Sierra and Jacques has basically asked us to open source everything. So all of our work is going to be available on GitHub. We're going to make our source code available. We're going to be making our applications available. All our work, our research is going to be publicly available for the entire community to share and leverage, and even build on if they find another need or use for our project.
Thank you. So that's our status update for the project. Okay, so that's it for status, current status. So next step. So one of the item here is membership from the group. So we have network operator, we have software developer, we have standard development organization in two different, so ITF and ISO. We have, we're missing manufacturers. So there's nobody from the community, from Cisco or whoever makes IoT device or home gateways. So that's something we need to find a way to attract a few of these people to join this working group. The challenge is that most of these people, I assume, are in California, not in Canada. So we're looking, I think we're actively looking, but we're having a hard time finding the right people to join this.
Okay, I didn't realize I mean, yeah, I will try to point some people our way.
Okay.
Yeah. Are there any particular, I mean, you know, obviously you mentioned Cisco because Cisco has Elliot Lear kind of actively involved in this. You know, is there anybody else in particular, or any particular manufacturer that you'd like to see?
I think I'd like to see manufacturers that use OpenWRT as their base. Like, well, it's not true. We have one manufacturer working with us, which is CZNIC in Czech Republic. So they have they sell the Omnia Tourist Gateway, which is OpenWRT based that we're building on. So we have one manufacturer that's working with us, but I think it'd be nice to have
IoT.
Huh?
IoT manufacturers.
Yeah. A couple of IoT vendors that would implement MUD, and a couple of home gateway provider manufacturer that would support OpenWRT.
So Jacques, I don't know if I can get OpenWRT, but with some of the stuff that we're doing with BC Hydro, there's a lot of home controllers, so electrical monitoring, that kind of stuff. And actually, there's quite a few Quebec companies who create these things for the North American market. So these are HVAC kind of controllers that exist. They are in the CSA CVP program. So what I can try to do is see if they might be interested in one or two of them to be able to just see if they'd be willing to join. So I'll put that as a takeaway. See if I can get one of them.
Okay.
Would you want chipset vendors, like the people who make gateway chipsets? You know, for example, I mean, I know we're using Marvell chips. Would we want to try to get a rep from Marvell?
I don't think we're there yet. More in the solution implementation. Because a vendor can build a MUD profile for a device technically without changing any software. Because it's going to document the characteristic of the IoT device. These are the access lists it needs. This is a thing it should not have. And we define that in MUD and provision that in the gateway, and then the right security controls are implemented. So I don't think we need to go to the chipset.
Am I hearing that we should also bring in UI or UX professionals?
That'd be interesting, yes.
Yeah, consider simplicity is one of our main goals.
Because 12 Dot is building a prototype UI, I guess.
Yeah, and I've got two UI UX people on my folks on my team.
Yeah.
So we haven't really gotten to them. We just mainly got our developer working on the interface right now. So, but the plan is to have one of my UX folks join the team a bit later once we get a bit more advanced in the feature and functionality. Right now, it's just very simple in what we're trying to do.
Well, the user interface is simple, right? Because you're allowed to swipe left, right, up, and down. That's it.
But I mean, the whole gateway does something else, right? So if you're giving somebody an app, it's going to need more than just whatever. Like we need more than, or I think we're going to end up with more things than just the MUD aspect. Potentially, yes. You know. For the IoT devices, if I could get a manufacturer who does cameras and like NAS for cameras, like storage for cameras, basically DVR systems, to give us sample setup that has a MUD implementation, would that be interesting and get them involved a little?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll phone a friend.
Say yes.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so in terms of like too much stuff on my computer here, just a sec. All right, so that's it for membership. I think if we add a few more people that are willing to participate, then we got that covered. So the other action item here I had is communication platform. So today, the working group, we have the mailing list and the Slack. I'd like to propose, if possible, is it possible to use only Slack, or do we need to have the mailing list? So this is feedback for you. My goal, my objective would be to have one medium to share information instead of two. So what's the feedback?
I would vote for Slack. Out.
1+. 1+ for me.
Yeah, I think in this case, Slack. But I guess the question is anybody on the call somebody who would object to using Slack?
Well, I personally believe that to get it rolling and to get sort of like stuff happening, it would be good to keep on at least saying there's stuff uploaded in Slack, just like a reminder for me at least.
Are you saying you want to keep the mailing list?
Just as a way to push people to the Slack channel.
Yes, I'm saying keep the mailing list.
Yeah, so it's more promotion than discussion.
So just to clarify, we're talking about the listservs here. So I think as of a couple of days ago, we had maybe 10 people signed up on the listservs. We still send out all the Zoom invites and all the meeting invites to just everyone's email. We're not talking about the email list. We're talking about the listservs right now.
Okay, so thanks, Tom. I meant the emails, not the listserv. They keep email communication.
Yeah, we're gonna keep that. That's not a worry.
Okay, so we keep email. We just send the minimum information, but the discussion should happen on Slack.
So instead of the network resiliency listserv, of which there aren't very many people attached, just, I guess, normal messages. If you're inviting people to a webinar or something, it's going to go out to the full group on the main email list. Is that the proposal?
And Slack.
And of course and Slack. And we can send periodic updates to the whole group about what's going on in network resilience instead of having a separate listserv. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's what you're hearing.
And then the discussion, the content discussion for this working group would happen over Slack, not over the mailing list. Make sense?
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think we have agreement.
Okay. Good. So the next webinar is, I'd like to propose the August 27, 28, 29 time frame in the afternoon. What we can do, if that works with most people, then Tom can send a doodle and we'll pick the best window out of these three. But so far, it's about a month from now. It's going to give some time for some work to happen, and then hopefully we'll have a start on the white paper, and then a bigger progress update on the home gateway prototype. And maybe by then add a couple more people to the group, the member. So everybody, is that
date? Just to put Bravween and Noah, who I don't think is on the call, on the spot. They've been doing a project with me at Algonquin, mostly, and the part we're going to be demoing at Algonquin's Research Day on the 24th of August. Mm-hmm. And so the part that we'll be demoing will be separating out different devices to give different devices different passwords for Wi-Fi to help make it easier to keep traffic separate to them and keep them from attacking each other, etc. So that's something that we've worked on and have a bit of a demo mostly up and running right now. That together with some user interface to go with it. So we'll be demoing revoking individual devices so that they're permanently kicked off the network without having everybody have to change the password. And that's a little component, a component that helps us on the home network side, make sure that we're able to apply security profiles.
So you're on the agenda.
Okay.
It's official.
So if you want to go to that, that's at Algonquin on the 24th, and there should be signs around campus. But I'll send out a.
Can you do a demo? Is it possible to do a demo on the next webinar? Quick demo?
I guess so. I guess we can try, yeah. Yeah, we'll just do whatever, the same thing we're demoing in person. We can try to demo on the webinar.
Okay, so send the information. Oh, sorry.
I also asked Elliot Lear if he would be part of that one as well. I've yet to hear from him, but yeah, we can use him.
So we can hear his perspective on MUD and what his intentions were.
That'd be great.
So we can do, that's about an hour, half an hour each, and then half an hour of status update, and that should do the next webinar, right? That sounds good?
Sounds good.
All right. Any AOB? One, two, three. No AOB. All right. So I'm on vacation for the next 2 weeks. So I'll think about you guys.
Yeah, sure you will.
Yeah.
One last thing. If you are not part of the network resiliency group yet, and you want to be, please send me your email, and I'll make sure you're included on the Slack today.
All right. Well, I will give you how much time left?
Negative.
Minus 3 minutes. Sorry about that.
Don't spend them all in one place. Have a great vacation.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.